Hi, welcome to A Pod with Two J's. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
So we're starting this off a little bit differently.
We are.
We are recording from my car in my driveway.
We're doing a car podcast.
We are. We had a bit of an incident. Moved the car up, spilled some bubbly, but we're going to get back on track real quick here.
It's all good.
So let's keep it light and airy. How was your week? How was your birthday? Tell me everything.
It was a birthday week.
Great. That's how it should be, girl.
And the weather was incredible. So that was like a gift in itself. A little bit of sunburn today. Crispy, unfortunately.
I made Julie sit outside my house and it was quite hot. But
and then I didn't sunscreen up prior to that playing tennis. So that was my own fault.
Right.
Let's see, my birthday week, I was very spoiled by my colleagues.
Nice.
Which was nice.
As you should be.
And lots of birthday messages. Thank you to everybody who reached out near and far. I appreciate all of them. Mm-hmm. And we had fun last night as well.
We did.
Went to our first Jays game of the season.
We did. We went and checked out the new facilities. We got fairly cheap seats and just roamed around and
checked out the new experience, the Corona rooftop patio. Great. We got to see the whole new bullpen experience, which is pretty cool. You're really close to it.
Yeah.
And the Schneider's hot dog area. Well, you know, I could probably live without that. Not that it's
right.
a bad area, but there's that massive hot dog that's like a teeter-totter thing. They seem to be really...
I didn't know that sitting on a hot dog was so exciting to...
Did you watch all the people when we were standing there?
It's just so exciting. It's just so exciting.
Guys with their beers trying to
like
balance.
Literally teeter-totter on a hot dog. Really, people, is this the excitement in your life? I mean, I get that the simple pleasures in life, but I don't know if teeter-tottering on a Schneider's freaking hot dog at the
Rogers Center.
Rogers Center.
Well, I think it would be
is the thing.
It would be really funny to watch younger kids, but these were grown men.
Yeah, grown men.
Mostly men. A few
women. They weren't just doing that. They were banging it into the ground obnoxiously and laughing about it like it was, I don't know, something really exciting to do.
So my take on that was, if you're standing there watching the game, which you could, the noise when they dropped it every time was so loud.
Yes,
it was overwhelmingly loud, and I would find it really disturbing. If I was there another 10 minutes, I would have probably had to see.
But it was beautiful. There was lots of places to check out. We had a great time. It's all good.
So yeah, it was a great birthday week, and thank you to everybody who reached out. And I also want to thank a good dear friend of mine for reaching out and giving us some feedback on our podcast. Jim Gordon, that's for you. Jim, I've known Jim for probably 30 years or so. So Jim is a writer. He's a producer. He's a radio guy. He's a TV guy. So he was probably the one I was worried about the most listening to our podcast, because he is in the media, but he gave us some great feedback, and he is a host of Our City Tonight, and he also is the co-host of Travel Guys with Darren Parkman. Nice. So check those out. They're great shows. He's a great guy, and thanks, Jim, for the feedback.
Yes, and that's boosts us up a little bit, because he did say we sounded natural and we flowed great, and coming from a media guy I'm a total amateur in media. So
he said he loved the flow of the conversation. He told us I guess the feedback was great, that it sounded very natural, our conversation. We don't script our podcasts at all.
Correct.
We do have a plan of what we're going to talk about.
Correct, yeah.
But we don't rehearse or do anything like that. And he said it sounded very natural.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And so...
Good job.
So this is a great thing, what Julie just said. Like, we are friends, but in so many ways, we are opposites. So I tend to form a sort of script in my head. I say, I want to do this point, which I can probably send to you, and you're like, I don't know what this girl is going to talk about.
Like, what does mine look like?
And yours are very, very thorough. Like, to the point where I'll breeze through it, and I'll be like, but I understand, like, these are the points that you want to hit, and I have points I want to hit. And for me, particularly coming into this episode tonight, which is going to be a very vulnerable episode for you.
I have nothing written down.
You came over tonight I can imagine you were nervous because you're like, this girl did not tell me what she wants to ask me. I do not know what I'm talking about. And I told you basically I'll lead it because we are introducing Julie to the podcast world. It is a vulnerable position to be in. So Julie, tell me how your marriage ended.
There was a time if you asked me that question, I wouldn't even be able to answer it. So I've come a long way since my marriage ended. And my marriage ended with a man who was an alcoholic, and he was an emotional abuser at the end of our marriage. I was married to him for 18 years. I knew the day I met him that he was the man I was going to marry. Yes, so I knew that, and we had some great years together, and then all of a sudden things changed. And people always say to me, it doesn't all of a sudden change, but all of a sudden you notice changes because people can function and have demons that they deal with secretly.
Let's all keep in mind she had 3 children.
I was a busy working full-time mom. Well, I wasn't just sitting at home looking to see what was going on and what wasn't going on. So when things started to unravel was my ex was an executive, an IT executive, intelligent man, great job. We had a good family life, so I thought at that time. And his mother passed away, and then he lost his job. And slowly after that, things changed. I think his mother was his lifeline. I really honestly think. I can't ask her that now because she's not here. And I had a wonderful relationship, which I've already mentioned about her. But I'm really thinking that she was his lifeline and that all of a sudden she was gone. And so he just kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And he started to... I don't want to get... there's certain details that I would never tell the podcast people that are listening because I'd never want it to hurt my children because they've been hurt enough. But the overall story, without getting into it, and this is something they all know, obviously. They're young. But my boys were... At the end of my marriage, my boys were 12, 16 and 17. And I think it affected, at that time, my 16 and 17-year-old boys much more than my 12-year-old.
Right.
He was younger. He was going to bed early. We were doing travel hockey. We were all over the place.
Right. So you have 3 kids. You're busy. Your husband's seemingly, successful. Nothing's changing except you're getting busier. He seems to be getting distant. He's getting more into his addiction. You're focusing on the kids. They're obviously in travel and rep hockey.
Yes.
I'm
working full time.
You're working full time. Things get busy. You don't notice everything everybody's doing.
No, but I've been accused of having a blind eye to
which
everything.
Is just not... You can't accuse anybody of anything if you don't live in that life. No, and here you are. And then he gets into this addiction phase. Fast forward, the marriage is in a breakdown. You separated.
I had to force him to leave our living arrangement.
Because he was...
I had to sell my home for him to leave because he wouldn't leave. Because it was the abuse, the emotional abuse, which is something that I never thought I would ever
because
have to deal
addiction changes people's personality.
It changed him completely, but it was escalating. And the one night I went to sleep, I was afraid to go to sleep
because it was affecting your children were seeing certain things.
It was escalating to a point. I even had to flee the house at one point.
Okay,
and my kids know that they were with me,
yeah.
and obviously they were with me, and I woke up the next day and thought, okay, that's it. My house has to go up for sale because you cannot force a spouse to leave.
Correct. And without a court order. Correct.
Right. So I did what I had to do at the time. It killed me to do something like that to my family.
Of course.
I'm
sure it killed you to do that to them because I don't know if any of you guys... So if you are new to the podcast and this is your first episode, you should look back on the last 3 because I'm going to tell you there's nobody that talks more about the love that they had for their husband than Julie. Yeah. And so I want to also clarify that sometimes if you hear, but this woman loved this man.
I did. And let's cut to the chase here. I stayed probably too long
because you loved him.
it was always out of love.
Yeah.
It was never out of stupidity or not having intelligence and not seeing. I was so desperate for him to just take that lifeline that I offered him, but he couldn't.
Right.
He couldn't do it. I waited too long. I lost everything at the end of my marriage.
Your home,
my
your
family
marriage,
even walked away.
Your husband, your family, his family.
Except for one.
Right. Except for his mother. Or
grandmother.
Right.
Who's 99 and the best thing I've ever met.
She
just called me on my birthday. That was the highlight of my day. She said, "Hey girl, are you getting any younger?"
Oh, there you go.
Anyway.
So I want to take it a step further, like we talked about earlier. So I want to tell everybody this is not just about Julie having a husband who was an addict. Let's take it a step further, Julie, because let's talk about what's really going on.
Yeah, that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning.
He had an addiction and where he stands now.
Okay,
Can we talk about that?
But so my marriage, I lived with my boys on my own. I'm going to say from the end of 2018, I think it was around Christmas time. That was the end. Obviously, things weren't going to change. That year, he came in and out occasionally into my life. Occasionally. I would meet him occasionally if he decided that he would give me, a couple of dollars to help me, whatever.
Raise your kids.
Raise our
3
children.
boys.
Raise our children. So fast forward to, there was a lot of things in between that I'm going to just skip over for the privacy of my children and my own privacy. And 2019, I spent that whole year digging myself out of a black hole, literally walking around like a zombie, trying to put one foot in front of the other, trying to be a great mom, but also trying to figure out how I fix myself. I was broken. Mm-hmm. I was in a really dark place. Mm-hmm. So with the help of a great therapist, Helen, I love you and I always will, and my dad, my lifeline, I've spent many, many hours in hockey arena parking lots talking to him on the phone. I needed a place to vent safely. Mm-hmm. Car was great. I could cry. I could laugh with him. I could just say, Dad, I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Well, isn't this fitting that
we're in the
car right now?
But he was my lifeline for a long time. And he still is. He's so patient and he would listen. Between that, therapy, great friends, journaling, music. Music is my thing, and I cannot go a day without having at least an hour of
tennis, walking,
outdoor activity. To be physical. And I beat those demons down that way. It helps to relax me because I'm an active person anyway. It helps with the stress. New Year's Eve, I said to myself, okay, Julie, that's it. No more crying yourself to sleep anymore. 2020 is going to be so much better.
Yeah.
All of what happens in 2020, COVID, but besides that. So I'd taken the boys on a trip at the end of 2019 to Europe. It was amazing. Packed our bags. And I said to myself, when we packed those bags, and I told the boys, all of our worries, they stay at home. Don't come with us for 10 days to Europe. We had an amazing trip. It was so therapeutic. It was amazing. We loved it. They still talk about it all the time. Get into 2020, and he was talking extremely... he was talking incoherently. He was talking about our life from 5 years ago. Like, where's my car? Where's this Jeep? And where's this? And he was asking all kinds of questions. And I'm like... I said to him, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I just need you to pick me up and bring me home. I'm like, we don't live together anymore. We haven't lived together for a long time. I'm not picking you up and I'm not bringing you home. And this went on for 4 days. Maybe 2 days into it, I thought, this is not a drunk call. I know the difference between a drunk person, especially him. So I started to get concerned that there was something wrong with him. So on the Monday, I finally went into work and I said to my boss, I need to do something personal today. I need to go. And she knew my story. She was very supportive. I need to go pick up my ex and take him to a hospital. So I called him and I said, please tell me your location, which I will never reveal to anyone. Not even my children will know where I picked him up. And I'll pick you up and I will take you to the hospital. You are not coming home with me. And if you don't agree to that, you cannot get in my vehicle. So he got in the car. He sat in the back seat. I drove him to a hospital that I knew had great mental health care because I figured that was the issue. So we went, we checked in, I met this triage nurse who wanted to know what was going on. Basically had to speak for him because he was so confused and he didn't know what was going on. I barely recognized him when I picked him up. He was smaller than I am.
You were?
He knew who I was. Completely knew who I was. So the triage nurse doing the intake with him, and she asked him where he lived, and he looked at me, and I shook my head and I said to her, "This is my ex-husband. He does not live with me anymore."
Right.
And she said to him, "Where do you reside?" And he couldn't answer her question. So she said to me, "I'm going to put no fixed address." And I'm like, okay. I mean, that almost that made me feel awful, horrible, but there was a reason for it. So we get into emergency. I meet with tons of doctors. I told them my situation right out the get. This is my ex-husband. I'm only here to make sure he gets the proper care. So 12 hours later, many specialists came in and out. They did a scan. They thought there was some brain damage. They thought there was a million things wrong with him. Anyway, the psych ward was also involved with his care because they weren't sure which way, if it was physical or mental. And they signed a form that he could not discharge himself. He basically had to stay in the hospital until they figured out what was wrong because they knew his safety was at risk if he left the hospital, and it was. So he was in the hospital and then COVID kicked in. So it was kind of locked down in the hospital. But he was admitted that night, and he didn't come out. That was March, beginning of March. He didn't leave that facility until the end of October. So basically at the end, after lots of testing and MRIs, and meetings with social workers, and I stuck through that whole process with him because at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure he got the best care.
Yeah.
So he was diagnosed with early onset dementia. There's another word for it too, but basically
they say by proxy, but was it by
alcohol? This was because of his alcohol abuse.
Right.
So a lot of people will drink, and then years down the road, their liver will die, and they'll have cirrhosis of the liver. He was that complex sort of person that because he didn't eat,
right,
it was full on 24/7 drink. So to end the story, because I've been talking about it too long, and we've only been on the very surface of things. Right. So now my ex-husband, he lives in a long-term care facility. He knows who I am. I visited him a few times. Twice was because I had to go in and do something with his social worker. But every time he sees me, he knows who I am. And you could have a conversation with him. I don't want to give you the wrong idea that he's just incapacitated.
Does his family visit him?
No.
Okay. There's not a lot of women, well, I don't know any women who have had a husband who has drank themselves into dementia, who has left somebody with their 3 kids, whose family has abandoned her, whose family has abandoned him. Like, we're not talking about a man that had a strong family that stood by him, and you're just this evil ex-wife that left him.
No.
He's now has nobody standing by him.
No, but I'm blamed by his family. You don't know what anyone's been through. And everyone out there has been through something or is continuing to go through something right now. Right? There's people right now that might be listening that have a loved one that has an addiction issue, or you're being emotionally abused. And emotional abuse doesn't have to go with alcohol. There's 2 different ways. Right? You could have a dad that's just walked away. You have to, or a mom. It doesn't have to be a male. It can be a female. Yeah. And here I am always trying to be the opposite of trying to make sure. I do that all the time. I look for the good in everybody. Yeah. But my looking for the good used to be really long. Now it's short. Yeah. My fuse is much shorter. Yeah. You don't show me your goodness really quickly, I'm done.
Right. So you have to understand, I'm well aware of Julie's situation. At the end of the day, some people don't have a lot of people behind them to help them, to cheer them on, to support them, to back them up.
I did it all by myself. I'll tell you right now, I was the only person that was going to crawl out of that black hole.
And some people can have family straight to their face, not support them, and some people can have family pretend to be in their life and not support them. Okay, so I'm ending this podcast with a little throwing something at you.
Okay.
That you're not going to like.
Okay, throw it.
But if you could look back on yourself 5, 4, 3, however many years ago in the mirror, what would you say? What would Julie say to Julie?
Oh, I would say, Julie, it's going to be a rough ride. Buckle up, girl, because you're going to go from highs to lows to, you're going to lose friendships, you're going to lose family, you're going to lose your mind, you're going to lose your patience, you're going to love your kids more than you could ever imagine. You want to protect them more than you could ever wanted to have protected them before that, which was a natural thing for any mother to want to protect their children. You're going to want to be a better version of yourself for your children and for you, and you're going to come out at the other end not perfect, because I'm far from that. I have wounds that are deep. They're deep, but they're healing. They are getting better. I laugh more than I cry. I dance more. I sing more. I live more now. I think that it's not perfect, and I'm not looking for perfection, but I would say, Julie, God damn it, you got this, girl.
So thank you for being vulnerable tonight. Thank you for not overthinking too much of this episode, letting me roll a little bit on the fly, letting me ask you, feeling safe with me.
Anytime, girl. You know it.
Despite the fact that
you spilled wine all over me in the car.
Yeah, I spilled wine all over you. And I was pretty clear from the get-go that I wasn't going to go too deep.
Oh, no. We can't go too deep. There's privacy issues.
There's privacy. Like, everybody has to respect everybody's privacy. And y'all don't need to know everything.
No, you don't want to know. You don't want to know what's in my mind, because you can never take it out of your mind.
So here we are, and it's Julie's turn to do the quote. So do you have one for us, lovely Julie, for the quote of the week? Or you just want to say, everybody go fuck yourself? What do you want to say, girl?
I want to say...
How about you don't look up a quote, just tell me. Go.
No, I want to say...
Fly,
you know what?
Off the cuff. Off the cuff, girl.
I want to say, live your best life.
There you go.
And be true to yourself.
There you go. Look, and she's not even looking at anything, people. She's just looking at me.
I want you to, if you love to travel, travel. If you want to be adventurous, be adventurous. Yep. If you want to have 16 lovers, have 16 lovers. If you want to have 3 lovers, have 3 lovers. If you want to have no lovers, have no lovers. But I'm going to say, you do what you want to do. And
be happy.
Be happy. Because I'm not going to talk to you about any of my lovers on the next podcast.
Be happy. Right? Okay, so before we end this, do you remember all the things we talked about today? What did I say? This is how I want to end it. This is nothing. Julie, if you won $1 million.
You know where I'm going, girl.
Yeah. Because what did you say to me? Do you remember what you said to me? They say money can't
buy happiness. Bullshit! It doesn't. It buys you freedom from all the stress of money. Yes. You might not be happy, but you don't have to worry about certain things. Yeah. If I win $1 million, I'm in it. Yeah. Guess where I'm going.
Like, we don't need 65 million, but like 1 to 5 will buy me quite a bunch of happiness.
Okay, Jill's buying a house in Florida, and yes. I'm buying a place in Italy, so we can do our podcast remotely.
Ooh, totally,
and you can visit.
That's right.
And I'm going to learn my Italian.
There you go. And are we doing a song tonight? Or
I think we should do a song.
Yeah.
What are you feeling?
Yeah, so
I'm feeling something.
Here we go. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Appreciate you, Julie.
Appreciate you more.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am to be. This is me.